Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, got a new one for you. I'm going to be talking about some new cards and my favorite new cards from this year so far. The year is not over yet, but we've gotten a lot of exciting cards and a lot of exciting budget cards that you should be considering for some of your decks. So with all that said, let's jump into it. First up, let's start things off with some artifacts that, well, have been catching my eye. First up, we've got the Iron Crag, a 2-mana legendary artifact that taps for a colorless. Already piqued my interest. Again, we've got an efficient mana rock here. Again, simply costing 2 and tapping for 1. Wizards is starting to give us more and more of these lately. Yeah, it only taps for a colorless, but still, when you're in a 1, 2, maybe even 3 color deck, you can pretty much justify utilizing one of these, especially those 1 and 2 colors. Anyways, on top of that, whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have the Iron Crag become a legendary equipment artifact named Everflame Hero's Legacy. If you do, it gains equip 3, and equipped creature gets +3/+3 and loses all their abilities. So essentially, this is a flexible mana rock that Wizards are starting to give us more of these lately. It's really kind of like more of a utility mana rock where, okay, you can utilize it for mana, but it also has a secondary purpose. And again, many of those utility mana rocks are not as efficient. They're usually at 3 mana. They usually are 3, tap for 1. This one, though, is 2, tap for 1. You can utilize that mana right away. And then also it's got the potential, again, especially for maybe a Voltron deck, maybe a deck that's got a commander that's got, a decent amount of power, or just a legendary Tribal Matters deck. You can essentially utilize this, again, as a great equipment. I mean, not an overly, it's not an overly powerful equipment, right? But still, again, having basically a 2-mana artifact that essentially you can utilize for mana throughout the game, and then it becomes just, hey, +3/+3, which can make a lot of extra damage, a lot of extra power, a lot of extra utility to it. Keep in mind, kind of while reading through this too, it's kind of weird. If you do, it gains equip 3 and equip creature +3/+3 and loses all their abilities outside of the parentheses. It doesn't make the creature's equipped to lose its abilities. That would be really, really bad. This essentially loses the ability to tap for mana is what that means. So yeah. A very good card to consider, again, for a Legendary Tribal Matters deck, Voltron, any kind of a deck, again, that has a powerful commander. Or, again, just if you're using, like, Fractured Power Stone, which I use, plenty, actually, because it's just a good, solid, again, efficient mana rock. Again, when you're using a bunch of other efficient mana rocks, just, if you have a ton of them low to the ground, this is another one that just has even more utility to it. So, yeah, make sure you're considering something like this. Next up, Hilda's Crown of Winter. This card, I think, has a lot of potential out there. Legendary artifact for 3, pay 1, tap target creature. It's going to cost 1 less to activate during your turn. So this can be a free ability to utilize to tap down a creature, potentially get one of your creatures through. Or again, if you want to save it up, essentially to say, okay, hey, that player's got something that's probably going to be coming at me. Let's pay 1, let's tap it down. It's not going to be attacking. Or again, you can make deals with this. Be like, okay, hey, you know what? Are you going to be attacking me with that creature? If you are, I'm not going to tap it down. If you are going to, I will be tapping it down. On top of that, pay 3, sacrifice, draw a card for each tap creature opponent's control. Obviously, if you've got a deck that works with tapping, you can really take advantage of this. That being said, if someone's swinging out, yeah, you can just utilize this to draw a ton of cards. I think Keep Watch is the instant for 2 and a blue that basically does the exact same thing that's for, like, attacking creatures. But again, it's kind of along those same lines where, yeah, you can take advantage of players attacking a bunch of creatures. If you've got ways to tap down a bunch of creatures, essentially, or just ways to force creatures to be tapped down maybe when they enter the battlefield, you have a lot of ways to really take advantage of something like this. It could be a massive draw spell, and again, just a utility artifact that stays in play and does a lot of work for you. Next up, Mind Splice Apparatus, an artifact that costs 3 and a blue. It's got flash. At the beginning of your upkeep, put an oil counter on it. Instant source spells you cast, cost once cast for each oil counter on it. This card has so much potential, especially for spell slinger decks, ones that might have some, well, very, very, I'm not going to say cantrippy, I guess, but, it has the potential to draw cards, essentially, in a deck where you have instant sources that maybe you can draw into more cards, maybe some rituals in there. Even just some big mana spells, essentially, can really benefit for something like this. Getting more and more counters on this throughout the game to reduce that cost of your sorceries by more and more. Again, if you get that second counter on this, this is already worth its price, essentially, at 4 mana. So essentially, if it just sticks around 1 extra turn after, flash it in right before your turn, get that counter on your upkeep. Next upkeep, again, get another counter on it. Or more importantly, this works incredibly well, of course, with Proliferate, which can make this just absolutely absurd. Casting spells to proliferate, getting more counters on this, reducing the cost of your future spells. This can be absolutely huge. Cost reduction is amazing, 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 especially when you've got one card that can build up so much cost reduction that can give you just such an advantage over your opponents. An incredible card. But now let's move on to battles. That's apparently the next kind of card that is showing up in order. I guess it makes sense. Artifacts, battles. So we got Invasion of Zendikar is one that I really want to highlight, and one that I've been pretty big on this year so far. It's a battle siege that costs 3 and a green. When it enters the battlefield, select from 2 base land cards, play out battlefield, tap, then shuffle. I think, as Eddie said, Wizards must hate Explosive Vegetation because they just keep making much better cards than Explosive Vegetation. This one, again, is basically just Explosive Vegetation, but also it has the upside of being a battle that you can take down, or even convince your opponents to help you take down potentially. You can make some deals like that. Again, it's got 3. You take that down. It flips over to Awakened Skyclave, a 4/4 Vigilance, Hasty Elemental. Says as long as the battlefield say land to other types, tap for 1 mana of any color. So basically, this again is Explosive Vegetation with upside. You can actually just get a 4/4, which is not bad, with Vigilance and Haste, and then also just be able to utilize that essentially as another land, tap for more mana. So yeah, it has the potential essentially to ramp you 3 for 4 mana, which is pretty huge. So yeah, definitely a very good battle to consider, especially getting a landfall deck, a deck that just wants to ramp a ton, a deck that might be looking to utilize this as a creature as well. Make sure you're considering this one. But now let's move on to some creatures, and yeah, let's probably get through this one as quick as I can. Crawling Course, not because it's bad, it's an amazing card, because that art is just so creepy. 1/1 Phyrexian with Toxic 1 that costs a single white mana. When it dies, create a 1/1 Phyrexian Might artifact controlling with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. This is an aristocrat style kind of card. It is the dream for aristocrat style, essentially, to say, hey, okay, you have a low to the ground creature that when it dies, which in aristocrat style, you're going to be sacrificing it, getting value out of it. Then you get another creature. You get another one that might be even better again. Well, actually not better. It depends. That one being an artifact could help you, obviously, with other triggers as well. Not be able to block. Yeah, you're probably not going to be blocking with that anyways. Regardless, being able to essentially replace this creature again, 1 mana, you were getting 2 bodies. That is so much value again for those aristocrat styles. Also, obviously, in an Infect deck, this can be very good as well. It having Toxic 1 as well as, I said Infect, but I meant Poison. This having Toxic 1 as well as the Might actually having Toxic 1 could be great as well. If you've got ways to bring creatures back, yeah, bring it back, sacrifice it again. A lot of potential for a card like this. Again, 2 creatures in 1 essentially for 1 mana. Next up, Canker Bloom. Yeah, this one, again, just kind of shows just how far Wizards has come with their cards since they started. First up, this is a 3/2 for 2 mana. Phyrexian Fungus. Back in the day, you wouldn't have really seen a 3/2 for 2 mana. Now we are seeing a 3/2 for 2 mana with a lot of other techs. Pay 1, sacrifice to choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or proliferate. So again, this one essentially is just, hey, decent body for 2 mana with upside. With, hey, yeah, I'm also just removal for artifacts, enchantments. And also, if you do have any kind of counter synergy in the deck, yeah, this is already just a great card again with proliferating. Obviously, we talked about, like counter synergy earlier, like Mind Splice Apparatus. Anything that gets a charge counter on it, if you've got Everflowing Chalice, cool, you get extra counters on that. If you've got maybe poison counters on your opponents, yeah, you can do that as well. Do you have, -1/-1 counters on your opponent's creatures? Great. +1 counters on your own. Planeswalkers, any of those kinds of things. It's like, okay, this is a decent body removal and also helping with that. It's just a very good utility card. Then finally, in this category, Guardian of Ghirapur, a 3/3 flying angel that costs 2 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, except to one other target creature artifact you control, it turns the battlefield under its control beginning next end step. This is an incredible card for Blink decks out there. And again, keep in mind that it takes advantage of not just creatures, but also artifacts as well. I mean, just at a base level, let's say you have like a Gilded Lotus in play, okay, and you tap that to actually cast this. You could, if you really wanted to, again, it just brings it back at the end step, blink your Gilded Lotus, comes back at the end step, untap. So you get your mana back essentially. So that's at a very base level. Again, this obviously can take advantage of any kind of, ETBs on creatures is most likely where you're going to get the most value out of it. But yeah, again, for just 3 mana for a 3/3 flyer, that is pretty incredible. So yeah, a great card for many decks out there. Next up, let's move on to some enchantments. And first up, we got Fiery Inscription enchantment for 2 and a red. Enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you, so some nice little value there. More importantly, though, when you cast in sorcery spell, it's going to deal 2 damage to each opponent. So basically, gutter snipe, but better, because, well, first up, again, you get that ring tempting, and also it's on an enchantment, which is huge because typically, and I do say typically because it's not always the case, in my opinion, enchantments are the hardest permanent type to deal with. In that, again, most of your wraths are going to be more like Wrath of God, take out creatures. Yeah, that takes out gutter snipe. You have maybe other wraths like a Vandal Blast that's going to take out artifacts. But when it comes to enchantments, I'd say that the least amount of removal out there is in deck specifically for enchantments. So they're probably going to stick around a bit more than, again, say, creatures or, again, say, artifacts. So yeah, I think enchantments are pretty hardy for the most part. And again, just having this in play, if you have a spellslinger strategy, you're going to be punishing your opponents a ton for just casting spell to spell to spell. Probably cantripping, drawing more cards, casting more. Absolutely crazy, and storming off and probably winning. Next up, Rising of the Day. This one is incredibly budget friendly for what it is. Enchantment for 2 and a red. Creature control of haste. Ledger creature control +1 with 0. So basically, yeah, I mean, just at a very, very base level, just give, I think it's Fervor is the enchantment, the original enchantment for the exact same cost, 2 and a red, that just gives all your creatures haste. Cool. You already have that. Plus, on top of that now, your Legendary creature gets +1 with 0. That might not seem like a lot, but of course, for Legendary Tribal, that's amazing, obviously. But for, any kind of a commander that maybe just has like 6 power, not just 6 power, but has 6 power, instead of it being a 4-shot KO on any opponent, now it is turned into a 3-shot KO. Or, I mean, I guess obviously if you've got a commander up to, 10 power, cool, you can just actually turn that into a 2-shot KO. Little kind of itty-bitty, pump effects like this can really help. Again, if you have a Legendary Tribal Mentor's deck, great. Your entire team gets an extra power. That's great. But again, there's just some decks out there that just want to give their creatures haste to be more aggressive, with a creature-based strategy, token-based strategy. Or again, if you've got maybe a commander that has an activated ability that you want to utilize right away, like, my Garth deck does, essentially. You want to be able to give your creatures haste. It's a huge card to do so. A great card and a great value at just 14 cents. Now when it comes to instants, there are quite a few that impressed me this year. First up, we've got Not Dead After All, an instant for a single black mana until end of turn. Target creature control gains when this creature dies through the battlefield. Tap to control, then create a Wicked Roll token attached to it. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1. When this aura is put in a graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. Yeah, I mean, the important part isn't that second part. The important part is just, hey, another 1 mana Feign Death type effect. I like to call it a Feign Death type effect, essentially. Basically, hey, if that creature is going to die, they come back instead. So this is just a very good way. In black, it's kind of like a protection spell in a way, like in reverse, where it's like, oh, you didn't get protected, but now you're coming back. So again, for 1 mana, you can really protect, again, key pieces just out of nowhere, like your commander, potentially making them, again, with this one, even bigger, again, a bigger threat, +1/+1 on top of that, and then also, if they die, cool, or if the aura's put in a graveyard, each opponent gets drained 1, nice. Or you can really take advantage of, again, with this, death triggers by sacrificing creatures, getting them back, or again, ETBs with this very easily, again, in, say, in a Riskrat style strategy. One that, you can essentially, like, I know I'm going to be able to sacrifice this creature. I will use this first, sacrifice the creature, get that ETB again. It's kind of like a blink effect in a way. So, yeah, it's kind of like pseudo protection, pseudo blink in a way. And, yeah, we're getting more and more and more of these. So, every single time we see one, I'm definitely taking note of it. And it's a very good one. Next up, potentially the card that might have the biggest impact, in budget, essentially. Entis Restoration, a card that can just make a big difference pretty early on in the game. Instant for 2 and a green, sacrifice a land, choose your life for 2 basic land cards from the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. If you control a creature power 4 or greater, set your life for the 3 basic land cards from the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. This can essentially just be a better Harrow. I mean, at the least, it is just basically Roiling Regrowth, which already does see play, but again has the potential to be even better than, say, Harrow. Yeah, with Harrow, you get to use those lands right away. That's okay, though. With this, you have the potential to ramp 1 land further. So again, you're sacrificing 1 land, you're getting 3. If you control that creature power 4 or greater. If you've got a commander that's got power 4, cool. You can already pretty much guarantee that you're going to be able to get that most of the time when you're utilizing this. I mean, depending on the state of the game, essentially. Utilize it early if you need to. Utilize it later if you want to get that extra benefit. Again, if you've got a landfall strategy, yeah, that can be quite incredible. Sacrifice 1 land, go get 3 for 3 mana and get 3 landfall triggers. Again, if you've got Tatiova, cool. Congratulations. Draw 3, gain 3. Yeah, you have a lot of potential for a card like this. Next up, Filter Out. Speaking of potential, instant for 1 blue, return all non-creature, non-land permanents in his hands. This one is a very low to the ground, instant speed board wipe that can really throw a wrench to a lot of players' plans. Again, if players are playing a bunch of artifacts, maybe because they, again, maybe aren't in green and they need to ramp in some way, maybe they're playing a bunch of mana rocks, so they have an artifact-based strategy, yeah, you ruin their day, essentially, with a card like this. And the same goes for Enchantress decks as well. Also, obviously, battles, planeswalkers, anything else. Yeah, planeswalkers, if you're playing against a Super Friends deck, 3 mana, get rid of everything. Nice. Now, obviously, you're playing against a creature-based strategy. It's not going to help you there, but you are in blue. You got plenty of other ways to bounce creatures as well and deal with them, too. But again, if you've got a strategy that says, hey, you know what? I'm just mostly creatures out there. If I've got, like, a Talrand deck, which is just, hey, I'm just going to cast a bunch of instants. I got creatures. Cool. All of a sudden, let's bounce everything else that I don't care about. Get rid of it. And all of a sudden, for just 3 mana, yeah, just a lot of value. Finally, in instants, we got Transcendent Message. An instant for X, blue, convoke, draw X cards. Yeah, I mean, another great X draw spell. This one, again, instant speed is huge for these. I mean, Mind Spring is kind of an example for one that just, it costs less. Sure, it costs 2 mana less, essentially blue less, but it's at sorcery speed. Some decks don't want to utilize that. More so, you want to be able to save up your mana and just, do it right before your turn. So you're not just, wasting all your mana on your turn, not being able to react to your opponents. You can still react if you need to. Especially with one like this, if you've got a decent amount of creatures, again, like Tall Random example, essentially be able to create a lot of creatures, you can now utilize them with that Convoke to essentially make your spell nearly free, or, just dump even more mana into this and draw an absurd amount of cards to set yourself up for your next turn for a big play. But now let's move on to sorceries. We got Mirage Mockery, a sorcery for 2 and a blue. Choose one. Create a token's copy of target artifact creature control, or create a token that's a copy of target non-artifact creature control, and we can entwine it for 2 and a blue. So even if we just have that 3 mana, right, we can still basically Cackling Counterpart. Now, not instant speed, but still, basically just Cackling Counterpart, get a copy of any one of our creatures. Again, whether it's an artifact creature or a non-artifact creature, it does not matter. That being said, if you are playing in a deck that does have both artifact creatures and non-artifact creatures, cool. Now all of a sudden you get to really take advantage of this 6 mana, make 2 copies essentially, when that can be just a game-changing play. Or if you get maybe something like Liquid Metal Torque in your deck, which is a very popular, very good mana rock, yeah, you can turn one of your creatures that is not an artifact into an artifact and then make a copy of that as well. So yeah, a very good card in those situations. Again, just for 3 mana, making a clone of a creature, that can already be a very, very, very good deal. And then finally, speaking of a good deal, Ring Sight. My goodness, this is a very, very, very good tutor. Source for 1 blue and a black. The ring tempts you. Search life for a card that shows a color with a legendary creature control. Reveal it, put in your hand, and shuffle. Basically, hey, whatever creature you have in the battlefield, because the ring's tempting you, does one of the cards that you're want to search for actually match, one of those colors? Probably. Again, if you got your commander in play, it probably has all those colors already. So to say like, okay, yeah, 3 mana, go get whatever card out of your deck that you need. It's an incredible deal for that kind of, again, tutor effects. So yeah, a very, very good card, one that can play in a lot of decks out there that have Dimir. And yeah, again, if you're just looking for a very good tutor, again, Diabolic Tutor sees a ton of play out there already, and that one does cost 1 mana more, and this one's just 1 mana less, essentially, and typically will get you the exact same thing that you need. But now as this episode is coming to a close, I'd love to hear from you. Comment below with your thoughts on my picks for my favorite budget cards this year. What are some of your favorite budget ones that I might have missed? If you are interested in picking up any of these cards, then make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.